I don't even know where to start because today was a good day. And I've been trying to digest this information for the last 16 hours or so and trying to think about what I wanted to say or how I wanted to respond to it. Um, Thank you. Um, Shout out to FaBled Hunters. Thank you, Saint. Thank you, Ada. Um, Thank you for asking James White the question: Is PVE going to be a thing? Is that coming, or are we all just crazy? Back here. Yeah, it's coming. Um, I'm not going to say that we didn't have a good idea, or at least an instinct or a feeling, but yeah, it's coming. So now what do we do? Because now that it's no longer a hope or an aspiration, now it's actually a thing and a plan falling on a timeline. Where do we go from here? What do we do in the meantime? So I guess today what you just talk about is how and when. Um, when I think with the win, Louis got it right. I think Louis said a supplemental set release, and I am 1000% behind that. If we go back to the whole Hidden Talents article and the whole shindig I had a while back talking about design philosophy and how Flesh and Blood was kind of paving the way for player versus environments, we kind of look at the idea that they wanted to focus so much on limited play, and they still kept that focus but moved it to a back burner. It wasn't one of the preliminary, like, in the final four tenets of design philosophy. And I think what ultimately solidifies that too is looking at Crucible of War. I mean, Crucible of War itself, not draftable, can't play sealed. And at the end of the day, it really expanded on Blitz, which was important at the time, and it also expanded on Ultimate Pit Fight, giving you your first taste of multiplayer cards. And if I'm remembering correctly, I believe they announced like it would be Monarch Kingdoms and then a supplemental set again. I think it's the next set after Tales of Aria, or maybe the set after. I don't know. I haven't paid attention too much on that. I apologize. But moral of the story is a supplemental set release might be a continual thing every year. And I think having a supplemental set opens that window of having a player versus environment content piece to kind of complement it and kind of release with it at the same time. Now, with that being said, I do not want to kind of sit there and promote, product fatigue. At the end of the day, I just booked a hotel room for West Virginia for the Road to Nationals, got the flights for Vegas. That slush fund is kind of dwindled down a lot. And I think that big push for player versus environments kind of helps expand for the player base, the people who don't have all the resources to travel for professional play or big events. It's something you can do, enjoy the game, and play locally, play at home. So I don't really want to see a lot of player versus environment content thrown out in between the sets. Like there's something to buy, something new every month. I think there's a time and a place. And so supplemental sets seem to be the perfect place to kind of put that. Now, are we talking about the one this year? Thinking back to James' quote, I believe he said we're working on it, or working on some things. It will be coming eventually. And that phrasing, might he might be juking us, but I truly believe, fiddling with what I've fiddled with, looking at the balance of Flesh and Blood and how critical they are about getting it right, I don't think we see PvE for another year. I think it will be the following supplemental set at the earliest that we actually see something for player versus environment actually release. So that's my guesstimate on a win. And God knows I am the best at guessing things completely incorrectly. So I can't wait to be proven wrong. Now, as to the how, kind of delved into that a little bit, kind of coming out with the supplemental sets, but at the same time, how do they want to support it? How do they want to get that in players' hands? If you go back to way back when I talked with Louis back in January, one of the things that we harped on and really started driving into was the idea of the local game store having first access. And if you wanted to have these events, it could kind of go along with the armory kits. There could be something special presented, whether it's cold foils of previously printed or cards that were not previously printed in cold foil, or whether they want to use cards from the new supplemental set in a cold foil form as a treasure or a reward for completing the challenge. Maybe it's a system where you go to your local game store, you sign up for an event, they have 2 or 3 pods, it covers 16, 20 people, however many people you want to do it with. You pay an entry fee, you get a prize for just participating, and then if you actually beat the challenge, you get an additional reward or prize. Maybe they want to bounce it like that. Maybe it becomes a local game store phenomenon, and then from there it becomes released to the public after like a month or two. So maybe it's kind of a release event that comes, like you have like pre-release, release event, and then maybe the next week you go into player versus environment and doing this rating on Wraith, and you're engaged with the players in your store. Now, how many times a year will that happen? If we're looking at one supplemental set, we're probably looking at one release per year in that sense. But this is not to say that when like a new series of big limited sets come out, that something new couldn't complement that as well. But to play on that how, if I were to be crazy and look at Flesh and Blood on a player versus environment scale in the long run, I think if they do it right, and I believe they will, I have faith in that. If they do it right, and we have this opportunity, why couldn't that go on a greater scale than just the tabletop? Why couldn't we even have player versus environment pods or events at callings? Why couldn't we actually have special player versus environment events released at callings? You know, I think when I sent my email to LSS a few months back, I think the original idea I had in my mind is like, so say we have the first PvE piece comes out and it's like a raid on the Savage Lands, and then maybe the next one we get is an encounter in Metrics with some machine gone haywire, and then we get to the calling and there's a secret event where it's some kind of beast coming through, and we have to kind of handle that threat in the moment there, and everyone's seeing it fresh for the first time, and it's a special weekend event with maybe special prizes for participating, however they want to implement it. But what if there's something competitive in that sense to look forward to? You're not playing for a first place prize, but you're playing for a, hey, I was there and I did this. Expand your player base, expand the horizons. Not everyone can afford or has the time to actually be invested in the competitive play. Sometimes casual is just the way to be. Looking at myself, I don't have all the time in the world, and a lot of us say that. But the truth is, like, use your time wisely. Use it; it's precious. And so I don't have time to play matches with people and constantly learn how to play these heroes as well as I would hope. So I know what kind of content fits for me, and it's getting with my friends on a day that works for all of us and doing something like player versus environment, like how we do now with like the 1v1. So there's this whole pool of aspirations as to where they can release it, implement it, and reward it, and actually how they want to scale that. And with how they've balanced their competitive play, I truly believe that player versus environment will be a truly engaging experience. I have no doubt in my mind where every action, every choice you have between deck building, working together, and sacrificing during the gameplay will truly be a rewarding experience. With that said, finally, to kind of wrap this up, at the end of the day, I look at that win for the release of it, looking at the health of Flesh and Blood in the long term, first and foremost. With how well developed and balanced the competitive 1v1 play is, I think they need to kind of get that established, get the callings going, get the championships going, look at worlds, and then from there, let player versus environment kind of roll out and do its thing. I don't want to take away from one experience of the game to help support and get another one out. Being the biggest proponent that I personally know of player versus environment versus a few other people, I'm happy to wait if I know it's going to be done correctly, and it's going to be implemented safely, and it's going to be lasting for a long time. Sorry, that was all off the top of my head. I'm still digesting what all has just happened in the last 48 hours. Great interview. I appreciate the confirmation. That's a beautiful thing to look forward to. Today was a very happy day, and the next happy day will be when that first announcement comes out, and then the following one will be when I actually finally get to play the content released by LSS. But that's what we have for today. It's, yeah, a bit of a brain buster, like when you hear something's actually true, and it's a very exciting thing. And I hope you all enjoy it, and I hope you all stay safe out there, be happy, be engaged, be a part of your community. We all love having you here. Keep doing what you do best. Thank you so much.